why do people murder? It's because they get angry. He gets to the cause of the outward act, not just the outward act. So what is it? You have to control your anger. I don't believe he's calling all anger a sin here. I think what he's doing is saying that when your anger leads you to harm someone, that's wrong. So even if you don't kill them, having the kind of anger that would like to is wrong. So he takes it deeper. That's why he says you need to go farther than the Pharisees. He makes his teachings are more rigorous in following the law than even following all the 613s that are printed out. And he just goes deeper. He gets to the very core of why it's there. But also, this would be upsetting to many of these people because their interpretation was on the outward act. Don't murder. I haven't murdered anybody, therefore I'm okay. And to suddenly say, no, it even includes anger, that's now a whole new ballgame. So he's taking a common understanding of what the law is, and he's saying this is what it really means. Luther did the same thing when he wrote the Small Catechism. He followed that example and said, when it says, thou shalt not kill, it doesn't just mean don't hurt anybody. It also has a positive side. You should build them up, speak well of them, do all that you can to help them. So Luther took that. He wanted commandments not to be thou shalt nots, but thou shalt. And so if there's a shall not, hurt them. What's the shall? Help them. Through your words and your actions, your kindness and your deeds. So Jesus goes beyond the letter of the law and the outward and gets underneath the root. We could look at another one. 527, adultery. You've heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you that anyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out, throw it away, and so on. Now, what's this about? Seems obvious, right? What if I was to say this wasn't so much about morality and the sanctity of marriage? What if I was to say this is an understanding of property, that it has more to do with the 9th commandment and the 10th commandment of coveting than it does with the 6th commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery? That Jesus interprets adultery then, because remember, sorry gals, women were property. There was no equal standing. This was not equal relationship. And so even in the commandments, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his oxen, nor his donkey, nor anything else that is thy neighbor's. The wife is included with all the other property. Well, what makes us want somebody else's property? We begin to lust after it. I want what they have. I love their house. I like their car. I want what they have. Now, this is huge in terms of understanding that the relationship that I have with my wife now changes. It means that there's a difference in caring for her, because when you care for your property, you care for it, you don't care for it, it's up to you. Jesus is changing this. It's yours, you're to care for what you have. I think he's changing the whole understanding of what this meant. It's not that I don't think it has a moral implication, obviously it does, but I don't think most people look at this as having to do with the exchange of real property. It's like a slave. So we have a tendency to look at all this through 21st century eyes. Try to look at it through the eyes of the folks on that hillside that Jesus was talking to, and they're hearing some very different messages. You've heard it said, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, notice you have the you heard it said, but I say to you, the contrary statements. I say to you, turn the other cheek. This is the easiest one to understand, how Jesus is really getting after the true intent of that commandment from the beginning, which was justice, mercy, and grace. If someone steals my goat, I don't have a right to kill his oldest child. Because I have the power to do it does not mean that it's right to do. Justice is getting what's fair, so equal. You don't have a right to harm someone more than they've harmed you. It had never from the beginning did this commandment, this law, have anything to do with vengeance or getting even. Never. Never. And how often do we hear it quoted as vengeance? Eye for an eye. It's never intended that, and Jesus makes it clear that's just not what it's about. So Jesus, by a long shot, is not throwing away the laws of the Old Testament. He's actually asking them to go deeper and to understand them better and to live them out in a way with all of its implications as to what that means. Any questions on this?
You remember what Jimmy Carter said?
Yeah.
When the President of the United States said he lusted because he had the thought about a woman, and therefore he lusted in his heart. And it was so difficult for so many, I think, of the population of our country to accept that. And he, you know, being probably the teacher he has always been, I believe he really believed that. You know.
What he was saying is basically, I'm a sinner. And because I have not done the outward act of adultery doesn't mean that I haven't broken the commandments. Carter, being the Christian that he is, understands that he cannot fulfill the laws and that it's through the death and resurrection of Christ that saves us. Unfortunately, when you talk to press
Right.
or people who don't get that, they don't hear what he's trying to say. That's their soundbite. And it becomes fun. So, you know, to find any person who can say they haven't lusted after somebody else's property, spouse, whatever it is, whatever you could put in that category, I don't know how you find them. So, and it starts young. Look at our kids. My friend has that. I need that. That's all it is. I went to visit my granddaughter turns 1 today, and so I said, this is my last one, so I better go to see at least one of their 1-year-old birthdays. So I went up and saw her on Monday, and she is the sweetest, calmest. She just sits and smiles, and she can pull herself up, and my grandson, who's 3, kind of has a little train thing on a little small table that she can pull up. And he reaches, and he panics over his train. So he runs and says, no. And instantly her mouth goes up, her eyes get wide, and away she goes. And he's got a couple, she's only got a few teeth, but she's made a mark on the side of his mouth. And it's like, wow. Isn't that amazing how this sweet little docile thing can turn into this werewolf-looking creature. I found it hilarious. My daughter was mortified. I just laughed. I gotta go. See you later. Deal with it. But yeah, but when does it start? Holy moly! Don't tell me no. Don't tell me what I can't. And then we see the anger that comes and the harm that's done when the anger isn't controlled. So I think it's innate to everyone. So I don't think Jesus is giving us these laws, even though he tells us to obey the letter of them. I think that's why as Lutherans and as most Christians, we're more Pauline in our theology.